What if the next Predator game isn't just about Yautja hunting humans, but something far more terrifying? Predator Badlands might be the subtle hint we've been waiting for, a secret doorway connecting the iconic hunter to the ultimate prey, the Xenomorph. Get ready to have your mind blown as we decode the hidden alien Easter eggs and potential crossovers that could redefine both universes. We open with this absolutely brutal shot of the android Thea, played by Elle Fanning, and she looks like she's been through absolute hell. Her face is cut up, there are wounds around her neck, she's completely vulnerable and damaged. What really got me thinking, though, is that later in the trailer, at around the 56-second mark, we see what appears to be the same character, but without all this damage. So I'm wondering, is this opening shot actually from much later in the movie? Here's where it gets interesting. Elle Fanning is apparently playing two characters, Thea and another one called Tessa. My theory? This damaged android we see at the beginning might actually be Tessa, not Thea. We know from later shots that Thea gets her lower half destroyed, so maybe this other model provides the parts she needs to keep going. It's also playing into that classic Alien franchise trope of the messed up synthetic giving us exposition about what's happening. Think about Ash in the original Alien, or Rook in Romulus. Damaged androids spilling secrets is practically a signature move for this universe. The visual parallels are fascinating too. We see this actress in vulnerable positions throughout, laid out on this bed here, and later strung up on a tree in what looks almost like a crucifixion pose. There's definitely some symbolic stuff going on with death and rebirth themes. What really excites me is how this is bridging the Alien and Predator universes. We've had those two AVP movies before, but let's be honest, aside from maybe the first 10 minutes of the original, they weren't exactly beloved by fans. They pretty much killed the momentum for both franchises until we got Prey for Predator, and Ridley Scott got the Alien franchise back with Prometheus. But now, they're bringing them together again, and they're being smart about it. When we see Thea's eyes, she has the Weyland logos just like Andy from Romulus. It's a subtle way to show the company's influence and connect the timelines. Looking at the tech details, there's a tank that says Mother. That's the computer system from the original Alien that's been carried through the sequels. This one is labeled as Mother 62578. Considering Andy was described as an older model used for colonization, this movie might not be too far after the first Alien chronologically. There's also text mentioning Bioweapons Division, which was a big part of Alien 3 and was run by Michael Bishop. Their whole thing was tracking down Xenomorphs, so this is definitely tying into that larger narrative. Now let's talk about our main Predator character, who I'll call Dec, though I always mess up the pronunciation of these names. He's what's called unblooded, basically a young Predator who hasn't completed his trials yet. That's why he doesn't have a mask or some of the advanced tech we usually see. His equipment is stripped back compared to what we're used to. No cloaking device, no plasma caster, but he's got this interesting bow that might have been inspired by Dutch from the original Predator. There's also a sword that looks like an upgraded version of the heyday weapon from Predator 2. The elder Predator we see later in the trailer has the full gear, and I think he might have been sent to the same planet as Dec for his own trials. There's this great shot of what looks like the Elder watching a ship take off. Maybe that's him watching Dec and Thea leave the planet after completing their mission. This planet they're on is apparently the most dangerous planet in the universe, and boy, does it live up to that reputation. The landscape reminds me of those game-preserved planets from the Predator lore, basically cosmic hunting grounds where predators go to test themselves. From what director Dan Trachtenberg has said, parts of the movie will be set on Prime, the Predator homeworld, and possibly Kyalisk, also known as the Death Planet. Whether this dangerous world we're seeing is one of those or another preserved planet, it's clearly designed to be the ultimate survival challenge. The planet itself is actively hostile. We see these plant-like pods that look suspiciously similar to the spore pods from Alien Covenant. There are these tentacle attacks that manage to draw green predator blood, and aerial threats like pterodactyl-type creatures swooping down to grab our heroes. There's a significant human presence on this planet too. We see convoys moving supplies, and their equipment looks very similar to what we saw in Alien Romulus. The vehicles have the Weyland logo prominently displayed, so the company is definitely establishing some kind of base or operation here. I'm curious if these humans are connected to the OWF, Otherworldly Lifeforms program, or maybe Project Stargazer from previous films. Either way, Weyland's bioweapons division seems to be involved, which probably means they're engineering something nasty using various alien species. What's really compelling is the relationship between Dec and Thea. She apparently has intel about something that can't be killed, and he's the only one who can help her deal with it. It's giving me serious Star Wars vibes, like C-3PO and R2-D2 being forced together on their mission. There's even a visual callback to Yoda carrying Luke in his backpack, which is funny because apparently the working title for this film was Backpack. The director has mentioned being inspired by Shadow of the Colossus for some of the imagery, particularly Dec carrying Thea. One of the most intriguing elements is that we're seeing her on Predator combat. The Elder Predator with the fancy horned mask is fighting against other Yautja, and this might involve enforcers, the predators who hunt outcasts, and bad bloods who break their code of honor. We're also seeing evolution in predator communication. Dec actually speaks in this trailer, which builds on what we saw in recent films. The language was created by the same person who invented the Na'vi language for Avatar, so there's been real thought put into making their speech feel authentic. The big reveal at the end shows us this creature that honestly looks like something out of Zelda, Skyward Sword, specifically the imprisoned boss. But I don't think this is the final threat of the movie. Call it a hunch, but I suspect they're saving the real surprise for the climax. Given all the alien universe connections, the bioweapons division involvement, and the requirement that unblooded predators kill a xenomorph to become blooded, I have a strong feeling we're going to see some familiar aliens show up. They might be keeping that surprise out of the marketing entirely. Now let's dive deeper into the xenomorph angle, because a stunt performer who portrayed a xenomorph in FX's Alien Earth is now listed in an uncredited role for Predator. Badlands, which is pretty compelling evidence that we're getting the ultimate crossover. There are several plausible scenarios for how xenomorphs could end up on this death planet. The most obvious would be a crashed derelict ship. We've seen throughout the franchise that these engineer vessels carrying xenomorph eggs can end up anywhere in the galaxy. Given that this planet is described as the most dangerous in the universe, it would make perfect sense for a derelict to have crash-landed there centuries ago, allowing the xenomorphs to establish themselves in the ecosystem. Another possibility is black market trade. Weyland-Yutani had a clear intention to mass-produce the xenomorph for use as a bioweapon, and we know from the expanded universe that various factions have tried to weaponize these creatures. Maybe some smugglers or rogue scientists were transporting specimens when things went horribly wrong. The bioweapons angle is particularly intriguing, given the Weyland presence we see in the trailer. Weyland-Yutani believed that biological self-replicating weapons such as the xenomorph could form an ubiquitous component of distant force projection operations, so they might have deliberately introduced xenomorphs to this planet as part of some twisted experiment. What really excites me is the potential for new xenomorph variants adapted to the Badlands environment. We've seen how xenomorphs take on characteristics of their hosts, but what about environmental adaptation? On a planet with such hostile flora and fauna, we might see xenomorphs that have incorporated plant-like features from those deadly spore pods, or developed new hunting strategies to deal with the various predators native to this world. Imagine xenomorphs that can camouflage like the aggressive plant life, or ones that have adapted to the aerial threats by developing enhanced climbing or even limited flight capabilities. The franchise has always been about evolution and adaptation, so a Badlands variant could be truly terrifying. From a narrative standpoint, this raises the stakes exponentially. Predators view xenomorphs as the ultimate prey. Killing one is literally a rite of passage for young hunters. But what happens when the prey has evolved beyond anything the predators have encountered before? Dec might be walking into a situation where the traditional hunting methods don't work, forcing him to adapt and innovate just like his quarry. Let's be honest about the elephant in the room. Crossovers are tricky, and the Alien vs. Predator films didn't exactly set the bar high. But there are some genuinely exciting possibilities here that could revitalize both franchises. On the positive side, an increasingly popular theory indicates that Predator Badlands could actually be a stealth reboot of the Alien vs. Predator franchise crossover, and doing it as a stealth crossover is brilliant. Rather than announcing, hey, this is AVP3, and dealing with all that baggage, they're building a Predator story that naturally evolves into something bigger. The shared universe potential is enormous. Both franchises have rich lore about corporate malfeasance, bioweapons, and humanity's place in a hostile galaxy. Weyland-Yutani's obsession with weaponizing xenomorphs and the Predator's hunting culture could create fascinating conflicts beyond just monsters fight each other. We could see stories about human colonies caught between predator hunting grounds and xenomorph hives. Corporate executives trying to play both sides, using predator technology to control xenomorphs, or vice versa. The android angle alone opens up incredible possibilities. What happens when synthetic beings have to choose between corporate directives and survival when faced with both species? But there are real pitfalls to avoid. The biggest risk is making it feel forced or gimmicky. If the xenomorph appearance feels like fan service rather than organic story development, it could undermine both franchises. Fans are protective of their favorite properties, and forcing connections that don't make narrative sense would be a disaster. There's also the challenge of balancing screen time and focus. Predator: Badlands is clearly Deck's story, but introducing xenomorphs risks turning it into a generic monster movie where character development gets lost in the action. The film needs to maintain its identity while expanding the scope. The lore implications are huge too. Both franchises have detailed mythologies that don't always align perfectly. How do you reconcile different timelines, tech levels, and established facts without contradicting previous films? Predator: Badlands overtly connects the Alien series and the Predator franchise, which could lay the seeds for a new crossover between the iconic franchises, so they need to get this foundation right. However, if they pull this off successfully, it could be transformative for both properties. Imagine a shared universe where each franchise maintains its distinct identity while occasionally intersecting in meaningful ways. Alien films could focus on horror and corporate dystopia, Predator films on action and honor culture, with crossover events that feel earned and exciting rather than obligatory. The key is treating both species with respect and understanding what makes each franchise special. Xenomorphs work best as an almost unstoppable force of nature, while Predators are most interesting when we explore their culture and code of honor. A successful crossover would enhance both concepts rather than diminishing them. Looking at recent successes like Prey and Romulus, both franchises have proven they can evolve and surprise audiences while honoring their roots. If Badlands can thread that same needle while bringing them together, we might finally get the crossover film fans have been waiting for since those first Dark Horse comics in the 1990s. What do you think? Are you picking up on connections I missed? I'd love to hear your theories about where this story is heading and what other surprises might be waiting for us when the full movie drops. What really excites me about this trailer is how it's treating both franchises with respect while building something new. The creative teams behind both Prey and Romulus have said they think the best way to do an Alien versus Predator story is to not tell the audience that's what they're watching. Then, drop a xenomorph in the middle of the film as a complete surprise. The final action shots show a mech fighting the mystery creature, which is very reminiscent of the Power Loader versus Xenomorph Queen fight from Aliens. It's a great way to close out the trailer while hinting that there might be even more threats lurking on this death planet. The attention to detail in connecting these universes while telling a fresh story has me genuinely excited. This feels like it could be the AVP movie fans have been waiting for.